Well, I'm out at Stanford Hospital today visiting my daughter, and I figured it'd be an opportunity to do a little video here because there's a lot of interesting things going on. They've got so much work. This building over here is relatively new. It's come up just in the last few years. In fact, 3 years ago, that was barely there, and it's amazing how quickly it came up. But they've got all these tree protection zones, and interestingly, this particular live oak, which has always been here, probably had some kind of underground trenching done, because they've put cables up into the tree with ground anchors because somebody's worried about this tree falling down, which is quite remarkable. It's a significant tree, so they must have done something. Maybe it's out where this walkway is, this pathway. Well, I was visiting my daughter for over a year. She was sadly in the hospital for a long time with leukemia. And this whole area was fenced off. And inside this fenced area were these trees, which are still here. So these trees, which are in boxes, have been sitting here in these huge boxes for at least 3 years that I know of. And they keep watering them, they keep moving them around. But you can see the condition of the foliage is I gotta say, what's the point? You know, they probably had some kind of a requirement by the city to move the trees, and they didn't know where to put them. Or they thought that they'd try to save the trees. But clearly this tree is almost gone. It's only got about, gosh, I'd say 5% of the foliage that it should have. That one over there is a little better. It's got a little bit of foliage throughout. And the smallest of the three, that has the most foliage. So if anything's going to survive, it'll be that little guy over there. But, you know, a lot of ordinances require saving trees or moving trees, and this is what happens. They get put in these great big boxes, and a lot of the roots get severed. And there's this, it's an unrealistic expectation that these trees are going to survive. They may survive, but will they thrive? That's a big difference. Frankly, I think a 5-gallon tree put in the ground at the same time would become much better in the long run than what these trees are going to be. So they're going to put them in the ground. Clearly they've spent tens of thousands of dollars pulling these out of the ground and boxing them up. And then somebody's been having to maintain them for the last 5 years or so, 4 years. Because I'm going to guess that these trees came from over there. And in order for the city, which is the city of Palo Alto, to okay this development, their tree ordinance required that these trees be moved. So that's the result. Not pretty. The hospital grounds has a lot of really beautiful old oak trees, but the construction impact is really going to take its toll on these trees. Another tree that they've got throughout the complex are these Chinese elms. And interestingly, these trees are surviving in these raised containers, which surprises the heck out of me, because basically this is in a big pot. There's another one, it's in a big pot. So the roots are living down within here, and the only thing I can say is they've got some good cracks cut in the concrete that are severed in there. You can see that they were made with a saw, which allows for water to percolate through. And that's what's so critically important to keep these trees alive, but they're actually not doing too bad. Years ago, I'm going to go back 25 years, I actually got the job to prune all of these Chinese elms in this area. And it was a very difficult job for me because of all the people coming and going all day long, walking around. And I was up in a tree. It was actually that tree over there, kind of near the entrance. And I had the whole area coned off. And the whole day, people kept walking through the cones, and I kept getting angry. And I'd say, excuse me, sir, or ma'am, would you mind not walking underneath the cones? And you can see that it's a narrow pathway, and it's understandable that people would walk underneath these trees. Oh, that one's not looking too good. up in the pot here. But anyway, it was that tree over there, and amazingly, the diameter of the trunk is a bit bigger, but the size of the tree is about the same after 25 years. So anyway, I've got cones all the way around the base of the tree, and I'm telling people all day long, or I think it took me a couple hours. For the couple hours I was up in that tree, I said, you know, would you mind not walking through the cones? And most people complied, but they kept doing it. And finally, this guy walked underneath me as I was dropping a branch, and I lost my temper. And I shouted out at this guy, I said, for God's sakes, man, are you blind? And the guy held his white cane up to me and he said, as a matter of fact, I am. Which, really, I was incredibly embarrassed. I got down out of the tree, I escorted him through, and it was an attitude adjustment for me. Which, so the moral of the story is, when you're working in difficult tree locations, such as a hospital or an apartment complex, you have to recognize that people are somewhat oblivious to what you're doing. People go about their ways. You have to have somebody on the ground, somebody watching. You have to put out yellow tape. Cones are not good enough. And I've had too many close calls over the years. So learn from my mistake. Protect your work area the best you can.